Welcome all to this service of celebration of the life of Warren Benn. Beloved husband, father, father-in-law, grandfather, and friend. We gather together here today in the protective embrace of healing love. We gather together to share cherished memories, to grieve in the shelter of one another's presence, and to celebrate the undying spirit of love and of life that flowed throughout Warren's life and continues to flow in all of us today. Please be with me in prayer. O Spirit of life and of love, of comfort and healing and hope, be with all and each of us now. Help us to open our lives to you and to the abundant and sometimes heartbreaking fullness of life. Embrace us in our sorrow. Remind us of our joys. Fill us with your peace. And as we remember and mourn and celebrate here together today, set us once again on the path of renewed life. Amen.
Gone from My Sight by Henry Van Dyke. I am standing upon the seaside. A ship at my side spreads her white sails to the moving breeze and starts for the blue ocean. She is an object of beauty and strength. I stand and watch her until at length she hangs like a speck of white cloud just where the sea and sky come together to mingle. Then someone at my side says, "There, she is gone." Gone where? Gone from my sight. That is all. She is just as large in mast, hull, and spar as she was when she left my side. And she is just as able to bear her load of living freight to her destined port. Her diminished size is in me, not in her. And just at the moment when someone says, "There, she is gone," there are other eyes watching her coming, and other voices ready to take up the glad shout, "Here she comes." And that is dying.
Perhaps love is like a resting place, a shelter from the storm. It exists to give you comfort. It's there to keep you warm. And in those times of trouble, when you are most alone, the memory of love will bring you home. Perhaps love is like a window, perhaps an open door. It invites you to come closer. It wants to show you more. And even if you lose yourself and don't know what to do, the memory of love will see you through. Oh, love to some is like a cloud, to some is strong as steel, for some a way of living, for some a way to feel, and some say love is holding on, some say letting go, and some say love is everything, and some say they don't know. Perhaps love is like the ocean, filled with conflict, filled with change, like a fire when it's cold outside, or thunder when it rains. If I should live forever and all my dreams come true, my memories of love will be of you. My memories of love will be of you.
Hear now the reading from the first letter of John, chapter 4. Beloved, let us love one another. because love is from God. Everyone who loves is born of God and knows God, for God is love. Beloved, since God loves us so much, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God abides in us, and God's love is completed in us. God is love, and those who abide in love abide in God, and God abides in them. Adam.
Hello, thank you all for coming. This is about a Canadian, so this is going to be in metric. I'm sorry. I'm Adam, the son of Warren Benn. Warren grew up on a farm in Leader, Saskatchewan, population 300. The average low in the winter was -40. That's -40 in both Fahrenheit and Celsius. His dad, George, was a farmer. He also became a Canadian soldier and put up telegraph wires on the Normandy beaches on D-Day during World War II. George was proud of being part of freeing Holland from the Nazis. Warren's mother, Violet, she was a phenomenal bridge player and would take you for every dollar. She'd outfish any man around, and at 93, they had to talk her out of shoveling the 2-meter snowdrifts off the sidewalk in the winter. She died just a few years ago at 102. We're both proud Canadians and very hardy stock. As a farm lad, Warren took apart lawnmowers and motorcycles and put them back together, built sheds, and he sowed and he harvested. He had a pet raven that he found injured and nursed back to health. This was unusual because ravens are natural enemies of farmers. Most farmers shoot them. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's what had injured this raven. He got this big, beautiful bird back to health, feeding him scraps and mice from the barn, and released him when he was healthy enough. In high school, he got the nickname Gentle Ben, after a book about a boy and his friend, a grizzly bear. It's a fitting nickname, I think. He grew up playing hockey. The distance to the local rink might have been too far, so one winter he just poured himself a rink in the backyard, bucket by bucket from the kitchen sink. I remember him being so confident on skates, just like they're a part of him. He was smart, he knew how things worked, but wasn't afraid to try new things. In high school, he started working construction jobs, built houses in Saskatoon and Swift Current. I remember him telling me they worked in this house in Swift Current, that the foundation was poured very poorly and had started to sink even as they were building it. The crew thought it was all not going to be a great house. He felt bad about it for a long time. That's the impression he left me when he told me, so I apologize on his behalf. He always remembered lessons. Every time something didn't work or worked out splendidly, or someone told him a method, he'd squirrel that away, waiting for a time he knew would be useful to him or someone else. He told me all the construction hints he had learned on the job. If you hammer the tips of your nails, it will help not split the wood because they almost drill their own hole. And always make a drawing first, you'll learn something. The drawings he made for each project were just on a scrap paper with a wide construction pencil sharpened with a razor blade. They were mostly to make sure you weren't leaving out parts or so that you could keep track of your measurements. But they were in always perfect perspective. They were like throwaway studies for this future piece of woodwork. In my mind, they are works of art, and I wish I had thought to collect them. In work, he excelled because of his work ethic, but mostly how he got along with everyone. Nobody didn't like him. He was quiet, but smiley. Until he got to know you, then he was chatty and smiley. He was serious with work, but mostly with play. He knew every game and was always happy to teach. He never gloated in a win, but would always offer another game. I cannot keep track of all the leisure activities he taught me. Fishing, snooker, sailing, cribbage, shuffleboard, skating, brewing, canoeing, four-wheeling, camping. He even kept up with a team of curlers in Denver. If you've made fun of curling at the Olympics, it's because you haven't played it. It's a blast, and he was good at it. He met my mother, Kathy, playing shuffleboard with his cousin in Regina, Saskatchewan. I believe the story goes that it was love at first sight. He was kind of a hipster. He had a beard, drove a motorcycle, and smoked a pipe. But none of these very seriously. He survived the onslaught of the Mulder clan hazings, and they got married. I'm glossing over the years that I wasn't there and don't know the ins and outs of, but there was lots of canoeing, lots of camping, and lots of adventures. I don't remember him telling me much about work in those days, except for the new places that it took them: Windsor, Winnipeg, and then the US. I think the spirit of trying new things and finding adventures to led them to the adventure to take the opportunity in a new country. I think it was a very courageous choice. Denver was new, but the outdoor activities were in their wheelhouse. The places that Dana and I saw as kids were astounding. Some weekends, they drug us out of bed at 4 a.m. to drive for 2 hours so we could see the hot air balloon races, or a 15-hour drive to see Yellowstone, or the redwoods, or the white sand dunes, or the top of mountain passes all over Colorado. We saw everything. Dad never turned down an opportunity to help people. If you needed to build a fence, or haul some crap, or put on some shingles, he would be there. Generosity was in his blood. He would give his time, his labor, and even his actual blood. He was a 50-gallon blood donor. I only found out about this because of the Bond Fills 50 pin I found in his car a few years ago and asked him. He'd never brag about it, but that's not a casual accomplishment. That's a commitment that takes decades. When he did talk about work, he talked about the people that surrounded him. He was happy to be part of a team solving a problem. He worked on voice-over IP systems at Great West Life, which he found challenging but rewarding when they worked. On the weekends, he'd happily jump into new problem solving. He and I rebuilt the Jeep engine, and he built 2 custom 1950s style ground control NASA consoles, plus a pre-Apollo era space capsule for my college film that we shot in the garage. He was always credited as a grip in a handful of films that he worked on with me, but filled so many more roles, all uncredited. I don't know where he got the energy, but he never seemed tired. Always wanted to see what was around the corner. When he retired about 15 years ago, he didn't slow down, but he put his focus on his hobbies and my mom. He brewed more, sailed more, took up glass fusion, something almost no one saw coming. But the hidden artist he always was, had to go somewhere. Then they got the RV and went everywhere, but Oregon Pipe National Monument was a favorite. I think they both really loved the desert. I've been fortunate to be able to take a few friends of mine on sailing trips with him. Each had met him before we went, but I think we're left with a profound impression of him after. He was calm and confident and warm and wise. Maybe my friends were easy about just jumping on a boat for days at first, but felt like they were in good hands within minutes. I think one of the things I'm going to miss most about him was his hug. It was warm and comfortable. It came from the heart. I'm filled up with what he provided me and my family, Mom and Dana. He was a very supportive father-in-law to my wife and a wonderful papa to my daughter. I will miss him greatly. One more thing. I think something he would love is if you all went out and gave blood in his honor, if you're able. He needed a few pints over the past year, and we all might need some at some point. There's a national shortage, and he contributed greatly. Thank you.
All right. Well, I am Dana Benn. I am Warren Benn's daughter, youngest child. I absolutely loved that, Adam. That was amazing. You said everything that I couldn't remember, couldn't put into beautiful detail like that, and it was just as entertaining and exciting for me as well. So, okay, thank you all for coming today. I am not surprised at all to see all these incredible people here. People I don't know, and a lot of people I know really well. I am not surprised at all because my dad and my mother attracted great people, far and wide. Whether it was from where they grew up, or here in Denver, or at this church. I'm just so excited that you're all here to celebrate my father's life, and beyond honored and overwhelmed with joy that you've supported my family over all the years, but especially my mother over this past year, during this incredibly tough time. Losing my father has been the hardest and heaviest and most confusing time of my life to date. However, because I did have 38 great years from him, or 38 years with him, learning from him, being cheered on by him, and feeling unconditionally loved by him, I feel I can carry on with the endless support I felt growing up. He left me with some great tools to navigate this crazy thing called life. Over the past year, and even more so recently, I have spent a lot of time reflecting on just how lucky I am that Warren Benn was my father. I could go on and on about reasons why I feel so lucky, so I will. Looking through hundreds of photos and spending a lot of time with my thoughts and memories, I am overwhelmed by my dad's huge efforts to provide such a meaningful, safe life for my brother, my mom, and I. It has been a full life, full of adventure, exploration, friends, travel, nature, helping others, love, light, and a lot of laughter. He always encouraged us to chase our dreams, even if they weren't the most lucrative or stable, and to never let our mistakes define us. I think a lot of people here can agree that he practiced this compassion with his friends and even strangers too. He had the ability to make you feel seen and special. His jolly demeanor helped everyone to relax and enjoy the ride. He was open-minded and didn't have a judgmental bone in his body, but respectfully and always stood his ground and protected his morals and values. I deeply admire that quality. He was an incredible sportsman, handyman, and support to so many people, and I know we all will miss him. He was gentle, patient, and kind, and always helped me find my peace when my mind was lost or my heart was broken. His love for life was rich, and his love for my mom was richer. I'm so thankful to have my mom and dad together as parents. Talk about couple goals. They showed me what it was like to have a relationship built on trust, understanding, and passion. They taught me how to work through the hard times in order to enjoy the good. Thank you, Mama, for picking Warren for your partner and for the father of your children. I love you. And now I get to cherish his memory by watching my amazing brother follow in his footsteps with his own family. I love you too, Ad. One more, a lot of thanks, but one more thing is I'm also thankful he was around in time to meet my husband and build a relationship that was deep. I think a lot about the last week of his life at home. This was devastating, sad, and scary, but it was also sweet and beautiful. It was the first time in probably 20 plus years that just the four of us were together. We cried, we consoled each other, we shared stories, we listened to my dad's favorite music, and I've spent every moment loving on my father and trying to make him as comfortable as possible. Even though he was also sad and scared, probably, he still continued to soothe our hearts. I would press my cheek up to his lips, and he would give me little baby kisses with all the energy I have left, and I will carry this memory forever. When my brother arrived from New York and we were finally all together, I said, "Hey, Dad, Adam made it. We're all finally together." And he opened his eyes, and his last word was amazing. I promised to continue leading my life as my dad taught me, and I promised to take care of my mom. And I promised, per his instructions, to always point up. I want to say thank you for coming and showing my mom and my family your support. I will miss you, Daddy.
Please be seated. Now we'd like to invite up any and all who would like to share cherished memories of Warren or just share some reflections or a few words. You can either come up one by one and speak into this microphone, or if you're way in the middle and can't get out, we can hand a microphone to you. So I invite up anyone who would like to speak. He's just holding the microphone.
Thank you. I'm Nancy Cole.
I'm Chip Cole, and spirit of gentleness just did it to me. That was Warren. And you know, there's nothing like the camaraderie of being with your friends camping. Just so many adventures, so many strange, crazy situations. You get to watch Warren, just no problem.
Well, I remember, and I think you do too, the first time we met Kathy and Warren, we were on a Pilgrim Piers camping trip, Nancy, to Lake Granby. That was a fellowship group here. And Kathy and Warren were a new couple with a cute little boy. And we camped sort of near them, and they had all the same camping equipment we had, an old Coleman stove, a tent, and you had your cute dog then too. And it was just so fun to meet them, and it was like, this is a cool couple, you know? So you know what happened then?
Well, you know, we got a little bit bigger tent, and all of a sudden they got a pop-up camper. And then we got a bigger tent, and they got a Pleasureway van. And finally, we moved up to a teardrop trailer, and you should see the super wide, wonderful camper that they have now. It was always the best of camping with Warren and Kathy.
Hard act to follow. Well, I just want to mention, what is it? Oh no, you're going to talk about that Utah flood, right?
Oh, yeah. There's a few people here, like Dana remembers, this wonderful camp. You know, we're just spread out on the dirt, and we take this wonderful hike the next day, and suddenly the sky did its Utah thing.
It was a slot canyon, by the way.
And most everybody got back to the two cars, but I remember Warren and I were kind of bringing up the rear, and we got a little wet. We got in the cars, and it was really, really coming down, and we couldn't see outside because it got so steamy, and Warren comes over and he bangs on a window, and I roll down, we better get out of here. So somehow we both had four-wheel drives, but I don't know how we got back down to the campground, which was now in a river. Our little tent was now about 10 feet from this raging river, but the pop-up camper, it was saved our life because we were able to cook dinner that night, and we were still walking around in the water before it went away, but the pop-up camper saved us.
Yes, it was quite the experience, right?
Always those kind of adventures.
Right. Kathy, as you know, Warren was the original Beaver Man. He did everything, you expressed it so well, Adam, with such strength, competency, and grace. And he's just such a fantastic guy. And we just totally treasure his memory. Be there forever, don't you think?
They will be.
Thank you.
I believe Jenny and I were on that same Pilgrim Piers camping trip some 40 years ago. Memories go back that far with Warren, and certainly they were all special. But in recent years, it has been super special to have been sailing with Warren at Chatfield and sailboat racing. Warren, as a skipper, created a special camaraderie. Following the weekly sailboat races, relieved that the skipper and crew had survived, Warren would get out flasks and pour, not Canadian, but Irish whiskey for the crew. We typically miss the club's barbecue after the race. This Wednesday evening, the Colorado Sail and Yacht Club will have a special 8-bell end-of-life tribute for our friend Warren. The 8-bell ceremony is a long-standing tradition for the passing of a sailor at sea. The 8-bell, the ceremony will occur on the water just in the middle of Chatfield prior to the Wednesday evening races. Jenny?
It will be another tearful experience, I'm sure. I wish I had written this, but Jill Bachman wrote it, and they are unable to be here because they had some health problems. So I am reading it for them. How many of us have heard the old adage that actions speak louder than words? Warren Benn was a man of few words, but more words weren't necessary for him to connect meaningfully with others. After we moved from the Denver area, we were lucky in one respect because people liked to come visit in southern Arizona, and that was the case with our friends Kathy and Warren. Although we didn't have a lot of visits, they were just our visits. We didn't have to share them with anyone else. Our times together in Arizona revealed a lot about Warren. Warren liked to fix things and impressed us with his attitude of, I'm not afraid to dig in and get my hands dirty. He was confident in his abilities, and if they didn't work well, he could always find someone to help. He was an easygoing person and lived out the idea of go with the flow. How fitting it is that Warren was a man who relished being around and in the water, canoeing and sailing. Warren was comfortable wherever he was and ready to hang out, catch up, master a hike, or introduce us newbies to the sport of sailing. That goes without the flow, that go without the flow attitude showed up in ways that allowed him to take advantage of whatever the moment offered. And that is a lesson worth heeding for all of us today and in a world that can seem chaotic. When we describe Warren to our friends here in Green Valley, it is his kindness that stands out above all others. Warren was present to his friends, listening carefully and thoughtfully to what we were trying to say. We always knew that he had the time to give us, that we were important to him. We know that many of you here today have a lot of Warren stories, adventures, silly things, fun things, difficult things. Our Warren story can be summed up in the quote of Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never, ever forget how you made them feel. Warren made us feel welcome, relaxed, and at home. We love and miss this wonderful man and his many gifts to the world. Rest in peace, Warren Benn.
I'm Nancy Jo Shaw, and this is my husband,
Joe.
In spring of both 2014 and 2017, Joe and I went sailing the British Virgin Islands with Kathy and Warren and Ken and Sue Hovland. Joe and I will always remember watching Warren at the helm as we circumnavigated Jost Van Dyke Island. It was a long sail with tricky and shifting winds, and Warren looked like a real sailor. Joe and I will always remember being surprised as Warren added Kahlua and cream to our morning coffee. Joe and I don't usually drink alcohol for breakfast, but I will have to admit that the little battery-driven frother that he used is now a staple in our kitchen. We will also remember listening to Warren explain why the Mai Tai at Foxy's was the very best that we had had during our trip, something about the rum. The 6 of us were having a contest related to the best Mai Tais in the BVI. I will always remember seeing Warren, Ken, and Joe, maps spread out on a small table, plotting the best course for the next leg of our journey.
Well, my warmest memory of my friend Warren Benn, let me give a little forward to it. Kathy, as some of you may know, is not the most excited person about getting in water where things could sting or eat her. But she was determined to snorkel on this trip. Everybody's attention was on her as she slipped with her snorkel and her mask and her life jacket into the water over the beautiful reef, and we were wondering what was going to happen. So suddenly her head popped up, and I looked at Warren, who was glowing with joy and pride. Kathy would not get out of the water after that.
Joe and I will always remember watching Warren and Kathy walking hand in hand as they explored the Bitter Inn Resort. And we will always remember sharing beautiful sunsets with a great friend and a fine man. Thank you, Warren Benn, Kathy Benn.
My name is Randy Stafford, and I got to know Warren through Colorado Sail and Yacht Club, and I just want to share my remembrance of Warren, and I think you'll recognize some familiar themes. I think it was 2015, I accepted an invitation to become a regular crew member on Warren's boat, Sweet Scarlet, and I sailed with him for a whole season. We had a lot of fun. There was another guy named David Powers, who I think was a friend of Warren's from Great West, and there seems to be a recurring theme of alcohol here, so I was also party to the tradition of having a little after-race Angel's Envy or something. Well, then I bought my own boat the following year, 2016, and launched it on Chatfield and put it in its slip. And the very first person to come see my boat was Warren Benn. And he came up with that familiar twinkle in his eye, and he said, "Well, does she float?" And then Warren was the first person to sail with me. Just the two of us, the first person to take my boat out and hoist the sails. And then later, that year and following years, I'm glad you mentioned his work ethic, Adam, because I would come down to the marina early, and he would kind of frown at me and say, "Aren't you supposed to be working?" Because he knew that I was still working and not retired. And we would joke around with each other when we'd see each other on the water, and then sadly, so Warren was a mentor to me as a sailor in many ways, and then sadly, a little bit later, I would see Warren and Kathy at Rocky Mountain Cancer Center when I was taking my mother there for appointments, and thank you, Kathy, for keeping me updated. I did call Warren once, and I would always ask Bill, how he's doing, and I will miss him, and I'm fortunate to have called him a friend.
Well, I have one story to start out with. I had never met a Canadian couple before, and I didn't quite know what to expect, but they're wonderful. I'll never forget the 4th of July when Kathy and Warren had just received their U.S. citizenship. They had a big party, and it was so special for David and I to experience someone who was valuing being a U.S. citizen so much. And they talked about the tests they had to take, and it was like, oh my gosh, I'd forgotten all of that stuff. I was just so impressed with their courage to come to another country and become part of it. The other story I have was when I was doing co-dean at La Forêt with Warren. I didn't realize how creative Warren was until that year of planning. I mean, he is, I believe he still is a creative spirit, and he was a creative spirit. And he and I had so much fun laughing and planning, and with Kathy's support and David's support, and then executing that week down at La Forêt. It was just a highlight of my life. I miss him. We miss him. And love you, Warren.
This isn't fair. So anyhow, no, all I was going to say is that Warren, there we go. So Warren always made me feel at home.
And that isn't easy.
My name's Beth Ertz. I've been a friend of the Benns, my husband and I, for some, 34 years. I had Dana and Ashley in Sunday school when they were 4 years old. You were 2? I think you were 4. I think I get the final word, don't you, Dana? Yeah. I got to know Kathy and Warren picking Dana up in Sunday school. And then Ashley and Dana became fast and furious friends. And then Kara Landis came to our church with her parents, and the three of them were such a trio. I think, frankly, they were always in trouble. Don't you all? Yeah. And they hung out with Ben Westland and Paul Ely, if you know them. So it's been a long story, but the week that Warren was at home dying, I decided I knew I wasn't going to see him, and maybe I did this for myself, but I wanted, Kathy's already seen it, but I wrote a poem, which is new to me. It's not something I may be good at, and I have a daughter who majored in English, so we'll see what she thinks. It's called Finding Warren. A poem for Warren Benn. Some say finding my lobster. Others say finding my Warren. A gentle rock, brave, strong, smart, funny, and handsome. Warren, a faithful Canadian and an American, kind like no other, a son, brother, husband, father, and friend. There are so few like him. He's a traveler, camper, sailor, choir member, cook, artist. He's Kathy's. Their palpable love, always and forever. A life well lived with joy and grief. Let his spirit and love thrive, be with us forever. As sails of the boat catch the wind, watch angels carry him to ride the soft clouds to the horizon. May Warren's light and love, his kind spirit, be our North Star. Find your Warren and hold him dear.
My name is Harry Adair. A lot of what I have in mind has already been said today. Our families got to know each other very early on. Ours was a more quiet relationship than a lot of this world stuff that we've heard. We had a good time. We had a great time together. When we sang earlier, the second verse of Spirit of Gentleness, you swept through the deserts, you stung with the sand. And Chip and Nancy already talked about the camping trips, but there was quite a group of us every year over Memorial Day weekend would head to Utah for camping and four-wheeling and hiking. And it was just special time. And Warren was just a leader in that group. Another side of Warren, a lot of you may not be aware of, but he was quite a doer here at church. Whenever there was a landscaping crew that worked on trees and shrubberies, Warren was always here. He was our go-to guy. In fact, he became known as the man with the chainsaw. And he was so reliable, but so gentle and quiet about it. I mean, he wasn't one of these brave guys that just did something for credit. But I remember one time we were working on some trees out here in the southwest side, and one of those crabapple trees needed to be pruned, and it was fairly high. And before we knew it, there was Warren hanging over the edge of the roof with his chainsaw running. I would never do that. And he pruned that stupid tree. That's just the way he was. He just did things like that for no credit, but it just needed to be done, so he did it. I think a lot of us in this room can say what I feel, and that is that I truly feel that Warren was one of my best friends.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing all of those wonderful memories and thoughts of Warren. And now, please be with me in prayer. O Spirit of life, we celebrate and give thanks for our beloved Warren. We commend him into your loving embrace, a lamb of your own flock and a child of your own redeeming. And as we move onward in life today and tomorrow, open our eyes and our hearts to the continuing presence of Warren's Spirit in us and among us, ever and always. Help us to remember with assurance that wherever there is kindness and compassion and gentleness, wherever we walk in wisdom and dedication and generosity, wherever we feel the joy of humor and the love of family and friends, the Spirit of Warren, our loved one, dwells in us and among us. Amen. Rise for our last hymn. Please be seated. Kathy invites all of you to reception in Plymouth Hall, down the hall, following this service. If you'd like to talk with Kathy and her family, please meet them down there where they will be circulating among you. And now, go forth into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast to what is good. And beloved, let us love one another. And let all the people say, Amen.